Well, there's the telltale puddle, and the telltale puddle tells me that the water pump is leaking. So I got her home after a day out in the sun and limped it back home. Wasn't running too hot, not too hot, but it was running hot. So I know I'd lost a lot of my engine coolant. Probably sucked her right dry. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have to put a water pump in this. 181,000 miles, which is pretty good for a water pump, and 23 years, something like that. Pretty good, if nobody's put a water pump in it yet. I got us a new Bomba de Agua. See? Nueva Calidad Premium. That means premium quality, I would guess. Like my Spanish? I'm trying. I bought me a new one instead of a rebuilt. It was $11 more. I mean, it was for this and two 50/50 peaks, and the peaks were on sale for $6.99 a piece at O'Reilly's. O'Reilly. Set me back $45. So this has a lifetime guarantee. Let's have a look at it. See what we got here. Okay. Well, I like that better than the Ford design. The Ford has a screw-on fan, and these has bolts, looks like. That's going to be our lower outlet, probably right there. Maybe like that. Yeah, because our weep hole's there. Here's what happens is there's a dual seal in here, two seals. And when the outer seal goes, it kind of taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey bud, it's time for a water pump." If you let it go like that, I've even seen things jammed in there, like little plugs and stuff. And eventually it'll wear the inner seal out, and then it'll affect the bearings, and then the fan comes off into your radiator, and it's a mess. So you might as well get yourself a new water pump. And this one is even assembled in the good old US of A, of foreign materials. Oh, and USA materials. So that's great. That's great. I was going to just grab a bottle of 100% antifreeze, but they had this on sale for $6.99. The regular antifreeze in the O'Reilly's brand, O'Reilly, was $13. The Peak was about $17. If you weigh this with the fact that they're putting the correct water in this, and that is, a lot of people use just regular old water from their faucet, which has minerals in it, and the minerals has calcium in it, and calciums up your heater core and your radiator. Anyways, this is made with distilled water. So there you go. And I thought it was a pretty good deal. All right, let's get after it. I'm going to let this cool down for a little bit. I'm not going to get right into it because I know you're not going to believe this, but after traveling down the highway and being 90 degrees out today, that's going to be hot. Okay, the first step in removing the Bomba de Agua is loosening the intake air cleaner pipe that goes to the plenum down here. This whole mess is set on plugs, and if you just pull it up, pull it off, has a piece there, and then it also has a plug at the top. That cheer. Some kind of sensor at the top here. See if I can get it off. There she is. this comes off there just like that. There you go. Well, let's see what's next. If you can't find a schematic for your belt, look at your belt, get yourself a magic marker, and write it down. Either that or take a photograph of it. Some cars, you can put the belt on backwards, having the pump run backwards, and it will not circulate water. Engine will get hot. Next thing is our serpentine belt. If you haven't got one of these, get one of them. This goes on the adjuster. It's a spring tensioner. Pull it off the alternator. Bust your hand first. Come. That's right. Now you can take your belt off. Since this is a Chevrolet, we'll only need half of the tools. But if you're working on a Ford, it's almost necessary, absolutely, to have a stand that you can catch the dizzying array of tools. I know, I've owned Fords before. Henry Ford cornered the market on fasteners, I think, back in the 20s. And like one application will have 10 different heads on it. So, yeah. If you don't have a stand, it's nice to have a stand. Even a roll-around cart's great. Put your tools on so you don't have to bend over. Well, I'm used to working on Fords, and this is downright refreshing. You probably can't see this down here, but there's a bolt there, and there's one here, and there's one here, and there's two down there, which means this shroud does not come off as one piece, it comes off as two pieces. So you can take the top piece off without murdering yourself, without taking the front of the van off. Just wonderful. And the hose pushes out of the way and everything. It's like somebody designed this or something. Wow. It's a miracle. Okay, very good. Okay, I took out 5 bolts out of the shroud. It's rather self-explanatory, and it just comes out like that. Easy. Yeah, that's quite handy right there. That's very handy. Being able to do that. That's excellent. That's so easy. I have put my belt back on in order to loosen my the nuts holding my water pump on and my fan on. Actually, one of them wasn't even tight at all. So I put my belt back on to loosen those up. So I'm going to take that belt back off now that I've got them loosened, and I'll be able to take my fan off and should be able to see my water pump. Okay, a couple things you want to do when you do a bomba de agua is you want to look at your belt, your serpentine belt, and you want to see if it has any cracks in it. If it has any cracks in it, it's time to replace it. Mine's alright. I've already replaced mine a while back. Probably only has 10,000 miles on it. Next thing you want to do, you want to take this big pulley off and the little pulley. The big pulley has got left-handed threads.
I'm Scott McCollum, and I am McRoof. You're going to want to go to my website, mcroof.us, for a really big announcement. mcroof.us, where every replacement is replaced.
The little pulley has got right-handed threads. Say little pulley, probably the same size, but one has a smaller bolt than the next. So remember where those go. Once you take the nuts off your fan, take your fan off. You can take your pulley off too. Yeah, you can feel how hinky-pinky this is. Yeah, the bearing in it's all cogged up. It's all stiff. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to drain the radiator. It's probably drained itself down all the way to the water pump right now, but we're going to drain the rest of it out because we have to take that lower radiator hose off. So the only connections we have is a lower radiator hose, and we have a heater hose that goes on top. And then there's 4 bolts that go here and here. It's typical Chevrolet. So you've got 2 bolts, 2 bolts going there and there. The problem is, I hope those bolts aren't seized up. So I've pulled the other half of the shroud away, and I've loosened this up. This is your drain right here, and I have a little deal catching it right there, so we should be good. Let that drain for a little bit, and then we'll work on getting that clamp and that hose off, and that clamp and that hose off, and then we've got our 2 bolts. Should be pretty easy. I thought this was going to be awful, but this split shroud design, why, that's the most clever thing I ever heard of. Since we have the extra time, I'm also going to wash out my bottle. I'm going to suck out the old grunge out of there and try to get a bottle brush down there and kind of clean things out a little bit and suck it out, put new water in it, suck it out, keep doing that until it's clean. The reason why I wanted you to take these, where'd they go? Oh, there they are. Take these pulleys off is because we're going to grease them. And you say, well, how are you going to grease them? I'll show you. This is a little bit of my trickery to make things last a little longer. Okay, you're going to pull these bolts out and make sure you know exactly where they go. And what you're going to do is clean this all up, clean up on the other side and the other side as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull off these caps, and we're going to squirt grease in there. Now they don't make any noise right now. They run really well. That one's a little rough. We'll have a look at it and see if it's really bad. But you can make things last a lot longer if you grease them. Everything. Bearings, starter, wheel bearings. If you take your starter down halfway through its life and take it apart, clean it out, and clean the armature off and re-grease it and put it back together, you won't imagine how well it'll run, and it'll last a lot longer too. Everything lasts longer if you maintain them, but having time, that's part of it too. You know, you got to take things apart all the time. Okay. All right. Here's the seal to the front of the small bearing, and if you see, it moves quite well. I picked it out with this pick, and inside it is a lot of grease. That's a beautiful bearing, and that's going to last for a long time. That's well greased, and you can just push that seal. Did you hear it click back in? And she'll work well. So that one's fine. I pulled the top off of this one, and it's dry. You don't see any grease at all. It's kind of rough. It's probably making noise, and I'm not hearing it. I'm going to pack this with grease, with my grease gun. Just kind of like this. Just like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pack that down there with my fingers. And my fingers are kind of dirty. They need to be cleaner to work on bearings. Pack that into there. Roll it a couple of times. and then I'm going to pack it back in there again. This is going to make this bearing last a lot longer, and I'm just going to put it on my list to get another one of these because this is making noise and it's kind of crunchy. It's a lot less crunchy now. So I'm getting some grease on those bearings, those rollers. But you can grease these. All you have to do is take the tops off. If you have one that's older, you can take it out before it fails and grease it and get, you know, more miles out of it. Anything works better with grease, you know. Okay, we have our bearings looked at already, and we have them greased. I have an empty bottle here, that down here. Our radiator's still draining. I have an old brush, bottle brush. I'm using that to clean this out. Normally you could take one of these out, but you can see I have them both glued together because the tabs have broken, and so I can't take them off, and nor do I want to try. So I'm going to try to wash this out the best way I can, and then I'm going to use my pump here. Pump out that junk, all the stuff that's in there. And then once you get that all out, in fact you can even pull a siphon on it. Once you get that out, you fill it up with water and you start all over again and wash it out, and then eventually it'll be much cleaner than it was. Okay, I've got my bottom hose off right there. Right there. I shut my radiator off and then pulled my pan down there and caught a little bit of water that was underneath there. You got a bolt here, bolt there, a bolt there, and a bolt there. And I'm going to bop them off with the little Ryobi Impact 9/16. Take those 4 off, and then I should be able to. I've kind of got it loose, but it's hard to lift off and get that hose right there off there, the upper hose, without tearing it up too much. So let's get that going.
Thankfully, I bought a travel guard travel insurance plan, and they reimbursed us.
The best planned trips can run into unexpected problems, but the Travel Guard staff is available 24/7. And now when you text INSURE to 484848, you can get coverage for as low as $30. You bought Travel Guard for this trip too, didn't you?
Do you really think I'd let you take the Eiffel Tower without it?
Some things in life you wouldn't do without. Paris without the Eiffel Tower, or travel without Travel Guard travel insurance. Coverage includes flight and hotel rebooking, flight cancellation, lost baggage, medical expenses, passport or ticket replacement help, and much more. Starting as low as $30. Text INSURE to 484848. That's INSURE to 484848. Text INSURE to 484848. I'll fight the war on
I was able to rock it back and forth a little bit and pull that hose off of there. Let's drain this.
Call Generator Super Center, OKC today for a worry-free storm season. For a limited time, get a 16 kilowatt Generac standby.
I don't see any rebuild marks on it.
For only $7,900.
It looks like the original gaskets.
Generator Super Center.
No, it's original water pump. So there you go. A couple things we're going to have to do. Yeah, you can see how it's just, you can feel the bearings in it. We'll have to take these studs out. We'll probably clip on them low on a pair of vice grips, pull them out, and put them in the other one. So I'll take this over to the table. Okay, because I live in wonderful Oklahoma, nothing rots here. We don't have any salt, so nuts and bolts come apart real easy. Couple of things I want to look at. I'm going to shoot a little let go on those studs first. I want to look at how much meat I have that I can booger up. What I'm saying is, okay, let's see, I should have plenty enough to get this thickness of vice grip in here in order to clamp onto this and try to loosen this. That one's loose. That wasn't bad. I was thinking that was going to be terrible. So here's your studs. You can take this stud and I'm going to transfer these into the heat pump. Just like that. I'm sorry for the radio. I shouldn't have the radio on. It's too much of a distraction, but I like working while listening to the radio. It's soothing to me. So there you go. Those don't need to be really tight because as soon as you tighten them up, tighten the pump or tighten the pulley and the fan to it, they're not going to come out. Okay, I put a very thin coat of this on the block of the engine after I cleaned off the old gasket with the razor blade, and I cleaned it up with some brake clean. You didn't see that because it's too far in there and you probably wouldn't see it anyway. So I'm going to coat this one also, like that. Same with this one. There's a water hole right here. You must be careful not to plug it up, so you want to put very little on. Less is more in this case. Two gaskets are the same, so I'm going to cut this one off. Right there, and stick that right there, but I'm going to coat them pretty good with some of this first.
But I understand the arguments being made, and I'm not opposed to the bill. However, viewing this
like
as
that.
the issue with the next bill
Same with this one.
seems a bit irrational. Our state's economy is in the proverbial toilet because we are so dependent on high gas prices. The state has larger problems. We haven't had an agency audit in years.
Like that.
We've got waste everywhere. It was so bad in education there was a strike. Nobody is heeding your right to purchase a gun. Yeah, you've got to go through a gun
More on the outside.
in public. It's not like it's a major nuisance.
So essentially, you're coating four surfaces.
It's the only thing Oklahomans care about.
That, there you go.
The state is more screwed up than ever I had ever given it credit for. Well, Daniel, here's why I'm saying that I think it should be the pivotal issue, not the main issue, the pivotal issue.
There you go.
And what I mean by pivotal issue...
And we put the cap back on. Get the hands off. Half the bolts, I cleaned them.
And the reason I believe that is it is very easy for... We have
If you look at these, they're all the same size, so I'm not worried about which way they go in. And I'm going to put them in here to hold the gasket on. I'm going to start them by hand with hand tools. I'm not going to start them with an impact. That's a bozo no-no. Let's see here. Because you can cross thread really easy. And just like that. I'm also going to
the pivotal issue that got Trump
find it.
elected was his picks for Supreme Court. There were many people who did not want to vote for Trump. And they held their nose because they knew, well, at least people pick conservative Supreme Court justices for the next 4, possibly 8 years. And Hillary...
Okay, give me a minute. I'm going to have to find it.
Pivotal issue is to restore this...
I'm going to use a little of this on the threads.
To Oklahomans.
It's a little anti-seize.
A right that should
A little bit
have been taken away.
is nice.
The rest
There you
will
go.
work out later.
Just like
And by
that.
the way, oil prices are going up, so our economy will go up.
Oh, beautiful. Now we can set that thing in there.
KTOK, we've had
It's always something with these Bombers Diagua. I had to take the water outlet out of the old one. Got to use some Teflon tape on it. You want to wrap it this way. Peel it off. Because you're going to put it in this way and the Teflon tape won't come off. You don't put Teflon tape on there, you'll be crying later. Hey, that'd be a nice plug for the John Deere, I think. Wonderful.
Pennsylvania and the I-240 service road. Highway 66 at Indian Meridian. North on Lincoln Boulevard at High Street. Eastern and Memorial. Portland Avenue south of 63rd. Southwest Grand and Penn. Britain Road at May.
We're going to go put that in the vise and then tighten it up. Okay, you got your Bomber Diagua on there. Get your hose on there. I put a little ultra copper on that. I put a little ultra copper on this. I cleaned the inside of my hose as well. This gasket over here dropped off and I bolted it up and I could see it hanging off to the side, so I took it all back apart again and put the gasket on there. That being said, we have our hoses on there. Now, what are we going to do? Are we going to fill it with antifreeze? Oh, no. We're going to fill it with water first. And I'll tell you why. Because any myriad of things could have happened. Ruptured this hose or that or the other, and then you end up pouring your $8 or $9 bottle of 50/50 antifreeze onto the ground. You can always drain your radiator. But trying to get that $15 back, pretty hard. But you get my idea. I'm going to fill her up with water first. Okay, she's full of water. And I don't see Captain Obvious. Yeah, I know it's not running. I get it. It's not pressurized up or anything. But what I'm looking for is Captain Obvious. Some giant gaping, you know, oh, we didn't put the seal in the water pump or something like that. Yeah, you know. So, looking for that. Not seeing it. So, of course, since we filled it with water first, it's not going to leak. If we was to fill it with antifreeze first, oh, it'd be pouring out all over the place. So, we took that gremlin out of there, out of the equation. Now we can drain the radiator and we can truly put antifreeze in it. I've put my belt on. Without putting my fan on, I just slip the pulley over and it'll hold in place, and that way you're not fighting the fan. So fan's next. Okay, don't think that because you got the radiator full that it's full. It's not. You have a thermostat that has to open and fill the rest of it up. Especially if you've compromised your system, like a bad water pump, it will drain it from the top down, and you have to refill it from the kind of same way. So squeezing this hose here gets it up to the thermostat and up to the head. I'm going to start it now.
Todd Lamb will not support a special session to override Governor Fallon's veto.
put that cap on there loose. One click. Sometimes you have to watch things. I have a temperature that's showing 260 right now, and it's because the thermostat hasn't opened yet, hasn't started circulating yet. So what I want to look at is make sure that my serpentine belt is the right way, so it's pumping the water the right way, and then it should go down. The temperature, that is. Okay, what I did was it wouldn't go down. The temperature stayed where it was, high. So I loosened this clamp up right here on this heater hose, and I just cracked a little bit, and I heard this. Of course, it was shut off, and I heard this big air leak, or this big air, and then it went down, just like that. So it sucked it right down. And then I put it back on, and I filled my radiator up, and the temperature came down, so it's now circulating water. This is a water pump. It is not an air pump. So if it has air in it, it won't pump. So it has to be submersed. Also, while I was at it and I had this off, while it was running this, I sprayed a whole bunch of sea foam in it to clean it up. So it ought to smoke really good when I get done. All right, I'm going to take this gallon of water and wash this all off, because there's a lot of antifreeze and it's all sticky. So we'll do that next. Well, I knew it was too good to be true. Every screw that I put in here seemed like it went in hard or stripped in this cowl, but it is there and it's down. Okay, now we can put our air cleaner on, and we topped off our radiator. We checked our temperature gauge is great. We've cleaned out our bottle, and our bottle is full, and we've also greased our pulley bearings while we were in there, and we sprayed out the throttle body with some seafoam. So did a lot, and put a water pump on it too. Okay, how grubby this thing is. It really needs a power wash is what it needs. Okay.
Police officers from throughout Baltimore County working grids in the area where the burglary occurred, and they're looking.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off. I can't
Well, there you
believe it.
go.
I can't believe it. I paid more than $1 million each month, and soon enough, it was
About 2.5 hours from start to finish. I know that's probably not flat rating it, but there you go. Did some other repairs to it too, and we should be good to go. No more leak, and we're ready for the summer. Enjoy. I'm going inside.